Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to review American Gods, episode 4, entitled Get Gone. An interesting title this week. Um, we basically got to figure out the meaning of the title, amongst figuring out the purpose and meaning behind um, some other things, names that are mentioned throughout the show. But Get Gone is apparently a bug spray. And we get our one of our main characters here, Laura Moon, who is the wife of Shadow. Uh, we get to figure out, or better off, learn her story. As last week we discovered, due to Matt Sweeney's lucky coin, she had returned from the dead and she's awaiting Shadow when he returns home. But she has a very interesting story. We get to learn she's a casino dealer, which um, kind of can see how her and Shadow kind of um, were drawn to each other, how they got connected, with her being a casino dealer, him being this hustler, gambler, good with coin tricks and things like that. So, we get to see how they're introduced to each other as he's attempting to steal from a casino. And she's ahead of the game on Shadow, and she's basically letting them know, hey, uh, this is the '80s casinos. They really prosecute you these days. They don't break your fingers or do anything like that. And so it's very interesting because with the character of Laura Moon, she has this uh, uh, very complex character. She's somewhere in between good and bad in this gray area, and she's not without problems. As we discover, the Get Gone spray was not only to kill bugs, but uh, it would seem that she uses this hot tub to kind of create this vaping situation where she's inhaling the bug spray. At first, I thought she was maybe trying to end her life, but I'm under the impression now that she's using this as some type of drug to get high and things like that. But anyway, we got to learn that her and Shadow, they connect, and he wants to basically use her as an inside man so they can steal from casinos. But she's not interested in that at the moment, and we get to see that they just have this very hot sex scene in the beginning. There's definitely this large physical attraction going on, but we also get to learn that the meaning of the why she calls him puppy. The meaning behind puppy, because what's happening is, although she has this very physical relationship with Shadow, and they're seemingly on track to work together in a professional criminal situation. She uses she makes this comment to him about how he looks at her like a lost puppy. Because at this point we get to learn the character Shadow Moon is very much in love with Laura Moon, although Laura Moon doesn't feel the same way about him. She doesn't connect with him on that level. So the term puppy that we hear her refer to a lot, we get to understand that she's referring to him being the lost puppy. And some people, I think, initially thought she was saying poppy, the Spanish term of endearment. But no, she was saying puppy, like a puppy dog. So all very interesting, as we got to learn that. But, due to the complexity of the character of Laura Moon, whereas Shadow Moon's character, she's basically changed him. He has a regular job. He, is quite happy with her in their life, but she sees their life as very mundane. She's not happy, in the relationship. She wants a great deal more. So he revisits his original idea about, robbing a casino. Robbing the casino when they first met, and at this point, Shadow Moon, really has gotten away from that. He's fine with the way things are. He's changed as a person. You can tell that Shadow Moon has become a better person, but very just shows um, the restlessness and complexity of Laura Moon's character, and I just was so entertained by it. And it's interesting when I think about human nature, that there are people that are just never satisfied, with things. And obviously this character wasn't satisfied with her life. And there's this very interesting scene as we get to see when she comes back from the dead, and her so-called best friend, or at least her best friend, thought she was her best friend, is saying that, well, you didn't love Shadow when he was alive. And I just found that all very interesting. I really enjoyed those parts of the episode, because to me that speaks a lot to human nature, that happiness is really a state of mind, and that things on the outside and things happening on the outside of a person will never truly make them happy until they address what's going on inside, no matter what outside things get introduced to their lives. And apparently we can understand this, because Shadow's very happy where Laura's not. She wants to rob this bank. Rob the casino, and where Shadow is, questioning her about, well, if we do this, will that then make you happy? Because he doesn't understand why she isn't happy. And he's hoping doing this thing on the outside of her, doing this robbery, will correct that. And yeah, so I thought that was really great. But anyway, it doesn't work, as we got to see, and we get to see that Shadow does end up going to prison. And is trying to take the entire rap so that she doesn't have to go to prison. And being this complicated, unhappy character Laura Moon is, she's unable to, we find she was unable to wait for Shadow to get out of prison. And she starts to have an affair with Robbie. And while I can't believe I missed it, I had remember hearing Dane Cook's name, being mentioned throughout, when they were getting ready to, premiere, American Gods. But apparently Dane Cook played Robbie, and they're having these hot, steamy affairs, all whilst Shadow is in prison and lying to Shadow. And Laura Moon, as she's seeing that Shadow is nearing his time to come out of prison, she's basically trying to break it off. As we got to see with Dane Cook, or I'm sorry, with Robbie. And I guess they're going to have that one last, fling, that one last goodbye experience. And they decide to have it in one of their very hot and steamy locations, which is while Robbie's driving the car. Um, and apparently he's greatly distracted, and they're hit by a car, and we get to learn this how everybody found out about the affair, how Robbie died, in a very graphic, unsettling way, in a very compromising position they were found in. But uh, Laura, we got to see her then, her afterlife, what happened to her as she's kind of looking down on her body. And, the god Anubis returns, and he's going to weigh her hard. And I was a little bit confused by that scene, because I thought Anubis only visited people who followed the old ways. I wasn't certain why Anubis was there to escort her to the afterlife, things like that. And we get to find she wasn't a very a religious person or a person who didn't believe in anything. So Anubis is basically telling her when she would go to nothingness, which was not a very comforting thought. And it just go to darkness, and it wasn't very clear if that was going to be a conscious darkness or an unconscious darkness. But the way Anubis made it sound like it would be very much conscious, yet in darkness for eternity or something to that effect. So not a very comforting thought for Laura. And she was like, no way am I going to do that, and no way I'm going to let you weigh my heart and things like that. So she was fighting him back and letting him know, well, hey, I lived, I've done some very terrible things, and there's no way my heart's going to be less than that fetter. So I found that all just very funny. But she's whisked away before Anubis can do anything, and it appears that Anubis, he doesn't really know how this is possible, how this is happening, how she's sucked back into life. But just connecting the dots, my assumption is that Mad Sweeney's coin is what did it. But then they also mentioned Shadow's love throughout the episode, or her love for Shadow and vice versa. There being, she discovered or in her mind, she discovers she loves Shadow after she dies. So, all very interesting. So not sure if it's the leprechauns, Matt Sweeney's coin that brought her back, or it's a mixture of both. But she makes it back. We get to see where she has this encounter with basically her best friend who died during her best friend who she's having an affair with, her husband Robbie. And of course her best friend is heavily startled to see her back from the dead. And they have this just crazy scene where she is having to rid her body of the waste of embalming fluid, that she still had embalming fluid located in her. And they have this very cold, bitter reunion where what she did to her best friend is addressed, and if Shadow knows about these affairs that went on, and all that's brought up and kind of dealt with amongst these two women. And they kind of are, despite that situation, trying to seemingly get back on track as best they could under the circumstances. But she asked to borrow her car. They're off. I would imagine they're probably going to try to find Shadow. And they're stopped in the road by not only the god Anubis, but Mr. Ibis, or the god Thoth. And taken back, they're helping to repair her body, as it started to decay. Taken back, and they're explaining, or trying to understand what happened. But Anubis clearly is letting her know that, hey, once this is over, you will go back to complete darkness. You will complete, or I will complete my objective here of sending you, to get your due, after you die and things like that. You know, a scene that we also got to discover was that when Shadow was actually being beaten by the technical boy, I believe his name is called, the god of technology. We learned it was Laura who came back and saved him, and I thought that was very interesting. Her being dead, she had a lot of strength. She didn't really feel any pain, so she was able to beat all of them off. And that's where she loses, how she lost her hand. We got to discover all that. But just very interesting episode, along with the help of Anubis and Thoth and her best friend. She does finally make it, to greet Shadow, and the episode kind of ends there. So Laura Moon, a very interesting character, not a boring character at all, conflicted character, complicated character, We got to learn all about that, and we can only imagine what's going to happen, or we can only kind of speculate what's going to happen with the reunion she's going to get with Shadow, because her position has greatly changed towards Shadow. She it came in as one of these relationships was pretty much one-sided, where Shadow loved her and she clearly didn't feel the same way. But things have changed with her now. But does Shadow feel the same way? Because now we have Shadow, who has kind of moved on and accepted that she did these horrible things, and with everything that's going on with him and the new revelation he has in the dealing with the deities and his adventures and explorations, it's going to be kind of tough to see where Lara Moon is going to fit into his life at this point in the show. So it's going to all be interesting to see where it goes from now. I'm also imagining that he may let her know how all this is possible with her being able to come back to the dead. But at the same time, she's discovered it from Mr. Nubis or Nubis and Mr. Ibis. So I think she's pretty much on track. But where their relationship's going to go at this point, I have no idea. I have dabbled around the book a little bit, but still in the dark, very much like you all. And I have stopped reading because I think I'm going to let the show surprise me. So I'm in the dark about this as much as you all. But anyway, guys, I thought this was a good episode. I liked this episode. The entire episode was devoted to Lara Moon. We got to learn a lot of in depth about this character, and I really enjoyed that because I was able to understand clearly. They did a great way address their entire relationship in this episode, and I thought they moved along very well in this episode. I didn't find myself kind of watching the clock a little bit and move on. I thought everything moved at a great pace in this week's episode. I liked how it cleared up everything for me and gave me clarity. So great episode, guys. We're going to see what's going to happen with next week's episode. Looks like I think next week's episode is going to be pretty much about Shadow and Lara Moon and their relationship once more. And don't know if we'll get any more deities. I think we will. I think we will get the introduction of Mr. Rural as well. And look like Technology Boy is going to be in next week's episode as well. So I like this week's episode, guys. I thought it was a solid, good episode. Guys, if you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know if you like this week's episode. Did you like this week's episode better than last week's episode? Anyway, guys, until next time, take care.